Today we're going to be covering some items that are not worth the money. At least as of right now in the game, they are not. So you should definitely check the date of this video as some of these may change. For those of you too lazy to check, it's June 2025. Now I've made videos like this in the past, but this is going to be as very different as possible. There may be some like re-mentions because they're kind of too important not to mention, but the majority of them are going to be relevant from this year onwards. So we're starting off with something that's actually been added to the game recently, like very recently, and I did a testing video on as well. And that is going to be the Masterwork Staff, but in fact, pretty much all of the Masterwork weapons except maybe the spear, which of course is useful for melee's bleed abilities. Now, the Masterwork Staff, two-handed sword, and the bow are actually items that don't make any sense to get your hands on really at all. The reason being is they are super expensive, and until the price comes down, they're just not worth the money investment, because of the fact that these are actually aimed towards the lower level or people getting into PVM sort of player, and they don't replace things like the best in slot. They're not best in slot at all, and they are just not really worth the value. The reason being is, a good example being the Masterwork Staff, it costs around about 600 million GP. For this price, you could get your hand for way less, 200 mil-ish, you could get your hands on the tier 95 dual wield magic weapons, which will outperform this staff by an absolute mile. Basically, the price of these weapons just don't compete with the other options. It doesn't make sense to buy them because the other options have better specs or better effects, and so you usually be better off buying better weapons at a cheaper price. Hopefully the prices of these do come down, because I really like the idea of what these are meant to offer in the game. I think it's a great position to have, don't get me wrong, but I just think that as of right now, with the way that they are made and crafted and the demand for them, the price just doesn't make sense at all. So if you're looking to get yourself like a Masterwork Staff or something, don't. It's just not worth it. Of course, like I say, the prices of these could change, which is why it's important to check the actual date of this video when you're watching it, because if you're watching it in like 6 months time or something, maybe these are super cheap now. It may actually be worth buying. Man, I've gone on a rant about this one like 8 times now, and I rant so long that I'm like, I can't. This is like an 8-minute clip for one thing. Okay. Masterwork Armor. Masterwork Armor that just got added to the game for Magic. Tier 110 crafting. Released the Masterwork Magic Armor. Now, this is a very interesting one because it makes no sense to buy, in my opinion. Hope you're ready for me to get a little bit heated here, but bear with. I'll do my best not to. Okay, so here we have an interesting armor set. It is a power armor armor set, and it is going to give magic bonus, but it's also going to give the effects that you'd expect from tank gear in terms of increasing your total HP. It has, of course, a higher armor rating than Crypt Bloom, but you can't use that armor rating for damage reduction because it is power armor and it is not tank armor, so you get 0 damage reduction in PVM, just the fact that they miss more, and you can't use it with Animate Dead because it is not tank gear. Jagex have specifically said, and this is absolutely true, that the Masterwork magic equipment or all Masterwork equipment should not be looked as a best in slot option, which is fine, cool, nice. Why is it so expensive then? Now I get that this is a new armor set, but the way that you craft this, the prices aren't going to drop all that much because there's so much you have to invest in money wise to be able to make this in the first place. To me, it feels like Jagex should have thought it out a little bit more on where this would rank when they included like a list of stuff to make it. The process and the idea of Masterwork, in my opinion, is great, but including tectonic robes, for example, in the actual ingredients list and all the other stuff as well, along with all the time that it takes to do it, these are always going to be more expensive than, yep, elite tectonic armor. Now, this thing has a set effect, which is why it's interesting, and this has a set effect that will delay the amount of damage you take by 50% if you have all of the actual pieces equipped, depending on like how many you've got equipped. It's 10% each, and then it will give you that damage as they bleed over the next 6 seconds instead of just doing it all at once. So instead of a 10k hit, you'll take 5k, and then you'll take the rest of it spread across the next 6 seconds. But here's my issue with this, and I promise I'll be as quick as I can, and I swear to you guys, this is coming from the like nicest place possible, and I'm not trying to like belittle any PVMers. Trust me, I am not in the place to do that. I have a lot to learn, and I've learned a lot over the years. If you're a player who just wants to reduce the amount of damage they take in a fight because you're struggling and you're dying really quickly using a crap ton of food, and you feel like having tank gear on might help you focus on learning the mechanics of the boss, and then you can go ahead and like swap over to DPS armor and mix that in together, then cool, that's fine. Use Crippling Armor. It's cheaper, gives you more damage reduction, and actually is tank gear. Now that brings us to the problem. This gear costs more than the best in slot gear and the best in slot tank gear option too. So why would you ever buy this? The only reason you may buy this is one, to keepsake it. Guys, okay, sure, it looks nice. Keepsake it if you want to. Gameplay wise, the only reason you would probably buy this if there's a niche situation where you need it to be able to deal with a mechanic that's killing you. And to that, I say there's a way to deal with that mechanic that's not buying this gear and making your character in a worse position than they should be. Now that may sound like I'm just saying get good, and yeah, maybe, but I promise you it's from the nicest point like possible. If you, instead of just learning how to deal with a mechanic, just buy this gear and go, I'll just tank it, you're not actually finding a solution to the mechanic. You're just kind of making the rest of your kill and your experience worse just so you don't struggle with that one thing, and it's not going to be worth it in the end of the day. So without that, it doesn't make sense to use this armor in any way whatsoever. It's not tank gear, you can't get animate dead, it's not as good as the best in slot power gear because it's way more expensive and it's not as good as it anyway. And the only real reason that you would get this outside of cosmetics is, well, it helps me tank this one big hit that's killing me, in which case you can just learn how to do it properly and not need them in any way whatsoever and be in a much better position. It may take time and frustration to learn the mechanic that you're going to use this to deal with, but I guarantee you, for the majority of you guys that are considering using this to deal with the mechanic, you would save more time by just grinding it out and trying and learning than the amount of time you lose by using this instead of the actual gear you should be using. So right now, the Masterwork Armor for Magic doesn't make sense. It doesn't at all. It's meant to be for like less than best in slot. It costs more than best in slot. It's meant to also be for entry level players. Entry level players arguably can't afford best in slot straight away because they're entry level players, and this is more expensive than that anyway. Okay, this is a long one, I know, and there's probably more points that I wanted to make but couldn't because it'll be on for like the whole video. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, and yes, I'm aware if you're an Iron Man, this could probably be a good thing, guys, in the comments. But as an Iron Man, I know, but remember, this is a video about things you shouldn't buy. You guys can't buy this, you can only make it. Moving on, we have an old item, actually, that rarely gets any sort of use or seen at all anymore, and that is the Death Touch Bracelet. Now, if you're a low-level player and you're looking for a gear upgrade, you may see this and think, hey, look, it's an Onyx like jewelry thing. It's a Death Touch Bracelet, only about 70 million GB. Is this worth getting? Well, what the Death Touch Bracelet does is it will actually have a chance at reflecting some of the damage you take back to the actual target, and this used to be useful at places like AOD. Now, people who do AOD can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume by this point this has been replaced by all the other like best in slot gloves of whatever combat style you're using. Other than here though, there's not really much use for this because of the fact that it's so cheap to get your hands on the new best in slot gloves for each combat style. For example, if you're using like Carapace wrist wraps or the enhanced versions, of course. And then the same with melee and ranged. You have the Gloves of Passage, you have the Nightmare Gauntlets, I believe they are, and you also have, you have Cinderbane gloves as well. Of course, when you can't use Cinderbane gloves, then you want to use something else, but these days, this would not be that. Now, this does have some sort of use, I guess. If you're a 1 defense account, then you can wear this without any sort of like stat requirements. You can just pop it on. Other than that, though, not really something that's worth buying these days. I have one of these in my bank. It's been sat there for a crap ton of time, but it is no longer useful really anyway. I don't think I've used it in well, years probably. Now, if there's a very niche use for this, or if it's still somehow good at AOD, let me know, guys, in the comments, because I am actually genuinely interested in this. But I'm pretty confident in saying that it's probably not worth putting on your shopping list until like you've got everything else, even if there is a niche use. Now, I'm just going to say this one's not really a waste of money because it's so cheap, but I wanted to mention it because this has just been added to the game. Like, it's the new platinum ring, the Ring of Retribution. This is basically a Ring of Recoil, but on steroids. What it does, it will reflect 15% of the damage you take back to the target, but not only that, it also buffs all of your reflect damage from other sources by 12.5% as well. So the reason I wanted to mention this one after the last one, the Death Touch Bracelet, and this one, it's still like, unless there's probably some very niche uses for this, like again, 1 defense accounts, maybe one like defense only accounts, like the people who just do summoning tanks and stuff. I guess you could use this for that too. There's probably just going to be some very interesting niche situations for this, but in the most part, just because probably a lot of people are wondering if this is useful or not, no, it's probably not. Like, this thing also degrades and breaks, But I don't know, man. I don't think this is going to be worth your time at all. And in most situations, you're just going to want to stick to the regular rings that you would see like best in slot, being the Reaver's ring, the Stalker's ring, Channeler's ring, the sort of stuff for Cultist and Zorgoth for Necromancy and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, it's cheap as hell. This is cheap as chips. So this isn't like a waste of money or anything by that point. But overall, like if you're interested if this ring is worth your time taking a look at, unless you're trying to do something where you like kill something by reflect damage only, then no, probably not. However, I will say that I'm gonna make a video probably at some point where I test out like just full reflect. So I'll use I'll use everything. It's not gonna be worth it, like don't get me wrong, but when Jagex do add things like this to the game, I always enjoy checking it out and seeing if there's like some funny or interesting use for it. Now, this is what I mentioned in the last video I did for this like years ago, and I said there's gonna be some overlap, but these is worth mentioning again. Many of you guys probably don't know these even exist, the ones I'm going to talk about. The high level players and the people like PVM like crazy, you guys will probably know this one, but for the average player, the Golden Touch ability and the Unsullied ability, these cost an absolute fortune to actually craft because you have to use 2,000 Vital Sparks, and Vital Sparks are not cheap. In fact, just going off like the Grand Exchange price right now, which may not be 100% accurate, but close enough, 850 mil-ish to be able to craft just one of these, which is wild. But the reason this is so expensive is because of the Limitless ability. So if you use 2,000 Vital Sparks, you can actually craft the Limitless ability codex, the Unsullied ability codex, or the Golden Touch ability codex. Now, the Limitless one is insanely good because you don't need 50% adrenaline before you can use your threshold abilities. You can use it from 15% because that's what they cost to use. And this is huge. This is used a lot. You'll use it as like a panic button for using a defensive if you need it. You'll use it to get more damage out in like your DPS rotations because you can use your thresholds like earlier on in your wild magic, your sunshine, your death swiftness and Zerk. It is super useful. Limitless is huge and something that every PVMer will eventually want to get. But Unsullied and Golden Touch costing the exact same things to craft makes these things just absolutely not worth it. Now, I asked in the last time I did this, which I remember, well, this was like it was maybe even 2 years ago we talked about this, if people actually had these, and a few of you did. Do you have to get these for comp? Maybe, possibly. But Golden Touch is an interesting one. When you use this, for the next 60 seconds, any monster drop that you get, which is below like your loot beam value, will be automatically converted into coins. The high alch version of the coins. There's really no reason to use, like 60 seconds is actually crazy. The cooldown is 120 seconds. So, 1 minute use for 2 minute cooldown. I don't think this is really worth the 850 mil that it currently costs to actually craft. I'm sure if you're like a multi-trillionaire, you can just buy this and who cares, right? And then you can just use it whenever. But for the regular player, probably not much point in getting on this at all. As for the Unsullied one though, this really is, I don't know, bro. This is only used in the Softenham Slayer dungeon, and it makes it so that the corruption mechanic, it won't deal any more damage to you for 30 seconds. So yeah, probably not worth it at all. This is apparently it's really useful when fighting the Magister. The Magister's a piece of cake, don't worry about it. 850 mil, not worth it, seeing as the Magicka also doesn't make any profit. But yeah, these are definitely interesting abilities, and Limitless is worth it, which is why the price is so high. But these other two, nobody ever talks about them because they're not worth spending your money on. Don't buy them, guys, unless you need them for comp. I don't know. That's going to bring us to the end of this one. Hopefully you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, sub to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye.